Hello, today we are comparing two very popular daily trainers in the support shoe category. First up, the Brooks Adrenaline GTS24 and also the New Balance Fresh Foam X 860 V14. Okay, I don't know, brands keep adding and adding to these names, but essentially the Brooks Adrenaline latest version and the New Balance 860 latest version for 2025. Now, they are daily trainers. They're for the majority of your everyday running, the steady miles. So they're not performance shoes, they're not racing shoes, they're just for those easy running days, okay? And for the majority of people, if you're running, say, maybe 6 days a week, you're taking one day off for a rest day, you may be running in this shoe 4 or 5 times a week. So they're real workhorses, and they're in the most popular and competitive price point of the market as well, which makes them very popular and good for value for money shoes. And I think in the price point where these sit, which is around £140, $140, brands realise that there's a lot of competition in this area, so you get very good value shoes at this price. So first up, let's take a look at some of the stats. First of all, the Adrenaline GTS24. So the weight in the men's is 10 ounces, 83.5 grams, and in the women's version, 8.8 ounces, 250 grams. Now, these weights typically apply to a US 8. The 860, a fraction heavier, not noticeably so on the foot, but 10.8 or 307 grams in the men's and 8.8, 250 in the women's. So same on the women's. So there's always a little bit of variation, but I think for purposes of comparison, very similar shoes in terms of the weight. And like I said, not noticeably different. If you had one on each foot, can't tell the difference too much at all. The major difference in terms of the technical features of the shoe, apart from the difference in the cushioning materials, but we'll come on to that in a second, is the drop. The New Balance being an 8mm drop from heel into the forefoot, whereas the Brooks is a 12mm. Now again, personally, I don't feel that you notice too much of a difference. The Brooks doesn't feel significantly higher drop when it's on your foot compared to the New Balance. And in terms of stack heights, we have 29mm in the heel on the New Balance, 21 in the forefoot. So that's the 8mm drop. And on the Brooks, now, it's a bit of a tricky one because there are various figures quoted. Brooks themselves on their website aren't quoting an actual figure other than the 12mm drop, but they're saying around 35 in the heel, 23 in the forefoot. Now, that makes it significantly thicker in the heel, but again, it doesn't feel so much so compared to the New Balance. Now, I think a lot of the issue around heel drop comes to where it's actually measured. Now, if we rewind the clock pre the sub-2 marathon and all the rules around stack heights, we didn't really become too concerned about the overall thickness of a shoe. Shoes are either all looked very similar until Hoka came along around 10 years ago and they had the max cushioning. And it was only then we started measuring the stack heights and talking about drops. So, some manufacturers are quoting figures based on the thickness of the midsole alone. Some are adding the thickness of the outsole, which will add a couple, 2-3 millimeters. Some are adding the thickness of the sock liner or the inner sole as well. Some are combining all 3 of those, 2 of those, you know. So there are variations, but these two shoes do sit very similarly on the foot. So they're in the kind of the mid-range height in terms of the overall stack of cushioning. Not max cushion shoes. They're right in the middle, everyday trainers. Okay, so really nothing to be overly concerned about in the difference between the stack heights, but the main difference comes in the foams. Now in the New Balance we have Fresh Foam X, and that's inserted right there in the name of the shoe, the Fresh Foam X 860 V14. Now Fresh Foam X is a a blended rubber. It's not a nitrogen injected foam. And Fresh Foam X is an umbrella term for lots of cushioning materials that New Balance use. So depending on the chemical makeup of the individual model, you can have a softer, firmer, or more responsive feel to the shoe. The 860, the stability shoe, uses two densities of the Fresh Foam X. The bottom layer, this grey layer, is slightly firmer than the top layer. And on the medial side of the shoe, on the inside, under the arch, that's thicker. And on the lateral side, it's thinner, more of the soft material. The idea being that when the foot lands laterally, it sinks, and as the foot rotates in, it wants to overpronate, it's rolling across onto a firmer density of material, and that reduces the rate of overpronation. So it slows that overpronation down through the gait cycle and keeps the foot in a more neutral position. We also have this stability plate in there that runs the full length of the shoe, and that's kind of slanted within the shoe as well. So again, it helps kind of create a little bit of stability. It doesn't act in the same manner as a carbon plate, but it kind of, because it's a little bit stiffer, it reduces the inward rotation of the foot, reduces the rate of pronation. And I must say, it works exceptionally well. The 860 is a great support shoe. I use video gait analysis, rear camera, and in that respect, when looking at people that overpronate in a neutral shoe compared to the 860, it does a very good job of controlling a lot of people that overpronate. The Brooks Adrenaline GTS24 uses DNA Loft V3. Now, the 24 is the first adrenaline to use the nitrogen-infused foam, the DNA Loft 3, that Brooks refer to it as. It's a nitrogen-injected foam. It's a little bit lighter, softer, springier, and more durable than EVA-based materials. Support in the shoe comes by way of the brand's go-to support system. There you are, the GTS, the guide rails, okay? So essentially, they are an extension of the cushioning on both the medial, the inside under the arch, and the lateral side of the shoe. So the foot's sat within here. You're not sat up there. You put your finger on the thumb and you can feel your foot sits down here. So it's kind of cupped inside the shoe. Your heel bone sinks into it like so, and that reduces the lateral movement, the rate of overpronation. Works very well for people that will excessively lean out as well. But for people that overpronate, again, works very well, always has done. Provides excellent levels of support. Essentially, if your foot does lean in, it'll be caught by the medial guide rail. If it leans out, it'll be caught by the lateral guide rail. So it works for a lot of people, provides general stability. So a very safe option. If you're ever in any doubt about a shoe to get, GTS, go-to shoe, Adrenaline 24 always does the job, and it's very safe. Okay, but in terms of effectiveness, I would put them right on a par. The Adrenaline and the 860 are certainly my go-to options for people that want an everyday trainer in the support category. So how do they feel differently? Well, like I said, the Fresh Foam X, it feels a little bit softer on the foot. The step-in experience is a little bit softer. It feels quite smooth rolling through, and it's a very durable shoe. The nitrogen foam has a little bit more of a spring to it. It can feel a little bit firmer at first, but a mile or so into the run, as it warms up, you notice that little bit more energized feel to it. There's a little bit more pop. The 860 does have that, and it seems to have that in the early days of the shoe. But when we're talking 300 to 400 miles into the life of the shoe, I think the nitrogen foam used in the Adrenaline seems to feel more consistent with how it felt in the early miles. Whereas you get a little bit of a drop off, a little bit of compression, so it doesn't have that pop in the later life of the shoe. Both very durable. You're going to get in excess of 400 miles out of them. I think the consistency of the ride lasts longer in the Adrenaline compared to the New Balance. Sole coverage, plenty of rubber coverage on the sole there. just about equal really. Durability wise, wear just as well. Fit true to size in terms of both length and width, and there's lots of padded and cushioning around the tongue, the ankle collar and the Achilles, so just very comfortable shoes. The mesh uppers, the knitted woven mesh uppers on both of them, very similar, and breathability not an issue. All round comfort, great shoes, great value for money shoes. So in terms of choosing between them, it is very difficult. I would score them perfectly equally. I would suggest going into a running store, putting one on each foot, having a run on the treadmill, and just seeing exactly which one you feel is most comfortable and suits you. They're both going to do the same job, durability the same, price very similar. It comes down to which feels better on your foot, the shape on your own foot, you know. So it's a very personal choice. There isn't a wrong answer on these two shoes. The Brooks Adrenaline GTS24 and the New Balance Fresh Foam X 860 V14. Both great shoes. Let us know which you choose. Please like, comment below and follow, subscribe to the channel. It really would be most appreciated. And if you have any questions, please comment below. I will always endeavour to answer all your questions on these or any other shoes. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back again soon with more content.